What if I told you that one wedding invitation would expose years of family dysfunction and force me to make the hardest decision of my life? What if I told you that sometimes loving your child means walking away from everyone else you've ever known? I'm Claire, and this is the story of how I learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters most. Fair warning, this gets heavy, but I promise there's light at the end of this tunnel. If you've ever felt like you're fighting for your child's place in this world, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Growing up as the eldest of 3 daughters, I learned early that my role was carved in stone. I was the responsible one, the mediator, the built-in babysitter. While my middle sister Tessa commanded attention as the family entertainer and youngest sister Rachel got away with everything as the baby, I was busy holding everyone else together. Don't get me wrong, I didn't hate it initially. When you're a kid, you accept the dynamics you're born into. But what I didn't realize was how deeply these patterns would affect my own family later on. Fast forward 20-some years. I'm married to Ethan, an incredible man who sees the world with kindness and patience qualities I would desperately need. And then came the phone call that changed everything. There was a 3-year-old girl named Maya who needed a home. When the social worker described her, those serious brown eyes, the way she observed everything, like she was taking mental notes for survival, something in my chest just knew this was my daughter. The day I met Maya, she was wearing this tiny yellow dress and clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. She didn't run to me or smile on cue like you see in movies. Instead, she studied my face with an intensity that nearly broke me. Here was this little person who'd already learned that adults weren't automatically safe, that love wasn't guaranteed. I made her a promise that day, right there in that sterile meeting room. You will always belong with us. You will never have to question whether you're wanted. Looking back, I had no idea how hard that promise would be to keep. Maya came home with us on a Tuesday. I remember because I'd taken the whole week off work, thinking we'd need time to adjust. What I didn't anticipate was how my own family would struggle with this addition. The first red flag was subtle, they always are, aren't they? My mother, meeting Maya for the first time, introduced her to a neighbor as Claire's little girl, rather than our granddaughter. When I gently corrected her later, she brushed it off. "Oh, honey, you know what I meant." But Maya was listening. She was always listening. At 3 years old, Maya was remarkably perceptive. She noticed when my sister Tessa would enthusiastically greet the other kids at family gatherings, but give her just a polite smile. She observed how Rachel's children got personalized stockings at Christmas, while hers remained generic. She watched as her artwork was received with lukewarm politeness, while her cousins' drawings earned genuine praise. "Maybe they need time to adjust," Ethan would say, ever the optimist. And I wanted to believe him. I made excuses, gave them the benefit of the doubt. Convinced myself that love would eventually win. Maya, meanwhile, adapted the way children do. She became quieter at family events, stayed closer to my side, and stopped offering to help in the kitchen when her gestures went unacknowledged. She was learning, even at that young age, to expect less. The first time she asked me, "Do they not like me because I'm adopted?" She was only 6 years old, and she'd already figured out what I'd been desperately trying to ignore. 7 years into our life together, Maya had grown into this incredible teenager. At 17, she was artistic, thoughtful, and had developed this quiet confidence that made my heart swell with pride. She'd started talking about college, about her future, about all the possibilities ahead of her. That's when Tessa announced her engagement. The engagement itself was very Tessa. Social media announcements, professional photo shoots, a ring that probably cost more than my car. Maya, sweet as always, spent an entire afternoon creating a handmade congratulations card. She cut out tiny wedding bells, arranged them in a heart shape, and covered the whole thing in so much glitter that I was finding sparkles in my car for weeks. Tessa's reaction? Oh, how sweet. Followed by leaving the card in her back seat where it got crushed under coffee cups and gym bags. When I found it there 2 weeks later, partially destroyed, something cold settled in my stomach. But Maya was excited about the wedding. She started browsing dress websites, asking me about hairstyles, wondering if she should wear heels or flats. There was this hopeful anticipation in her eyes. She wanted so badly to be part of this family celebration, to feel included in something special. Then the invitation arrived. Heavy cardstock, gold foil edges, the kind of expensive stationery that screams, "Look how important this event is." I opened it at the kitchen counter while Maya worked on homework at the table. Location, date, dress code, all standard wedding invitation fare. And then, at the bottom in elegant script, adults only celebration. 18 plus. Strictly enforced. No exceptions. I read it twice, hoping I'd misunderstood. But there it was, clear as day. My 17-year-old daughter, my daughter, who'd been dreaming about this wedding for months, was explicitly not welcome. Maya looked up from her math homework and saw my face. She has this way of reading emotions that comes from years of having to gauge adult moods for her own safety. She doesn't want me there, she said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. It's an adults-only wedding, I managed to say. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, is it because I'm adopted? Those 6 words cracked something fundamental inside me. Not because the question was surprising, Maya had always been perceptive about these things, but because she asked it so calmly, like exclusion was just another fact she'd learned to accept. I didn't call Tessa. I didn't text angry messages or demand explanations. I simply went online and clicked "Not attending" on the ERSVP. No lengthy explanation, no dramatic statements, just a quiet. The response was immediate and predictable. Tessa texted the next day, "Hey, saw your RSVP. Everything okay?" Followed quickly by, "If this is about the age thing, I hope you understand. We're being super consistent with everyone. Nothing personal. Nothing personal." As if excluding my daughter from a family celebration could ever be anything but personal. Then came Rachel's message. "Tessa said you're not coming?" Like, what's going on? And finally, the phone call I'd been dreading, my mother, using that particular tone she reserves for when she thinks I'm being unreasonable. "Claire, I heard you're not going to the wedding. Is this really about the age limit? Why isn't Maya invited?" I asked. "It's not like she's a little kid. She's family," Mom said, which was almost funny given how they'd treated Maya over the years. Then came the kicker. "Don't punish your sister over this. It's one night. One night for them. A lifetime of feeling like an outsider for Maya." I hung up without arguing. There was nothing left to say. Months passed. The wedding happened. I saw the photos on social media. All smiles and celebration. No one mentioned our absence. No one reached out to ask how Maya was feeling, or to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, excluding a 17-year-old family member was hurtful. By December, I'd made a decision. For the first time in 15 years of hosting Christmas dinner, I simply didn't. No dramatic announcement. No angry declarations. I just stayed quiet when the family group chat started buzzing about holiday plans. Who's bringing dessert to Claire's this year? Should we plan to arrive Christmas Eve like usual? Claire, let us know what we can contribute. I watched the messages accumulate, unanswered. With each passing day, the tone shifted from casual planning to confused concern to barely concealed irritation. Around mid-December, my father called. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. "Claire, we need to know what's going on. Your mother's upset. It's not too late to do the right thing." The right thing. as if opening my home to people who'd systematically excluded my daughter was somehow righteous. Instead of the usual chaos of hosting the deep cleaning, the grocery shopping, the extra chairs dragged up from the basement, Ethan, Maya, and I spent Christmas morning in our pajamas. We made lasagna for breakfast because we could. Maya painted while I actually finished reading a book. Ethan taught us both how to play chess. It was the most peaceful Christmas we'd had in years. Of course, peace never lasts long when you upset established family dynamics. December 26th brought a flood of messages, each one more accusatory than the last. Tessa in the group chat. I just think it's sad. We've all tried to welcome Maya, but Claire has made it impossible to connect with her. Rachel, if you cut off family every time there's a disagreement, you'll end up with no one. My father, the way you're handling this is cruel. I'm sorry, but it is. My mother sent a photo of their Christmas tree with the caption, "It wasn't the same without you." Maya would have loved her gifts. But those weren't gifts for Maya. They were guilt wrapped in ribbon, invitations to come back and pretend everything was fine. The breaking point came a few days later when they showed up at our door unannounced. Cold January evening, doorbell ringing just as we were sitting down to dinner. I opened the door to find my parents standing there, with a container of homemade cookies, my mother's peace offering of choice. We thought we'd stop by, Mom said with forced brightness. I didn't invite them in. Something about their posture, their expressions, told me this wasn't really about reconciliation. Can we come in for just a minute? Dad asked. No, I said, and watched their faces shift from surprise to something harder. What followed was perhaps the most honest conversation we'd ever had, which is to say it was brutal. You're going to lose your real family over a girl who's going to leave in a few months anyway, my father said, his patience finally snapping. She's 17, my mother added, as if Maya's age somehow diminished her worth. She'll go off to college soon. And then what? You'll be alone. You'll regret this. And then came the words I'll never forget. I'm sorry, Claire, but she's not blood. She's not really one of us. My mother said it gently, like she was doing me a favor, like she expected me to suddenly see reason and agree. Instead, I stepped back and said, You need to leave. Right now. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it until I couldn't hear their footsteps anymore. I told Maya about the visit the next day. I wasn't going to. I wanted to protect her from their poison, but I've never lied to her about anything important. She listened quietly, her hands clenched in her lap, shoulders tense. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. They really think I'll leave you, she said finally. They hope you will, I replied. That way, I'll come back to them. Maya nodded slowly, processing this. Then she said something that stopped me cold. They don't get to hope things about me. 17 years old, and she understood something it had taken me decades to learn. I thought that would be the end of it. I should have known better. A week later, my cousin Sarah forwarded me an email that Rachel had sent to our entire extended family. It was long, rambling, and vicious in the way only Rachel could manage. The gist was that I had abandoned the family for a girl who had manipulated her way into Claire's life and isolated her from everyone who truly loved her. She painted Maya as calculating and ungrateful, me as unstable and obsessed. It was character assassination disguised as concern, and worse, it was working. Relatives started reaching out with worried messages, asking if I was having some kind of breakdown. The final straw came when my second cousin left a comment on one of Maya's art posts. You're very lucky. Don't forget who gave you a home. Maya saw it. I saw her see it. And that's when I stopped playing defense. I spent the next day compiling everything, screenshots of dismissive messages, photos from events where Maya was clearly excluded, documentation of every slight and snub over the years. Then I wrote one letter with all the facts and sent it to everyone who'd received Rachel's poison. I didn't ask them to choose sides. I didn't beg for understanding. I simply provided the truth and let them decide for themselves. Some family members reached out with apologies. Others doubled down on their support for my sisters. A few quietly unfriended Rachel on social media without comment. But most did nothing, which was answer enough. I blocked everyone who tried to argue with me, everyone who suggested I work it out or think of the children as if I'd been thinking of anything else. I was done explaining, done justifying, done trying to make people care about my daughter's feelings. The silence that followed was peaceful. For the first time in years, we weren't walking on eggshells or bracing for the next slight. Maya started painting more, laughing more, talking about her future with excitement instead of anxiety. Maya's in college now, thriving in her art program and calling me every night, not because she has to, but because she wants to. When I dropped her off at her dorm, she hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere, Mom." She's proven them all wrong, not that she needed to. Maya didn't turn out to be the temporary addition they assumed she was. She didn't forget about me or move on to her real family. She became exactly what I always knew she was, my daughter in every way that matters. Sometimes people ask if I regret my decision, if I miss my family, if I think I overreacted, if I should have tried harder to make it work. Here's what I tell them. I miss the idea of them. I miss what I thought they were, what I hoped they could become. But I don't miss the constant vigilance, the way I had to translate their comments for Maya, the exhaustion of always being on guard. I chose my daughter over people who never truly accepted her. I chose peace over performance. I chose love over loyalty to dysfunction. And I'd make that choice again every single time. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to our story. I know it's not easy to hear about family fractures, especially when they involve children. But sometimes sharing these experiences helps others feel less alone in their own struggles. To anyone out there fighting for their child's place in this world, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. Your job is to protect your kid, not to make other people comfortable with their own prejudices. And to my Maya, if you ever read this, you were never too much. Never not enough. Never temporary. You were always exactly who you were supposed to be, my daughter, completely and forever. What do you think? Did I make the right choice? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting your child? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories like this resonate with you, please consider subscribing. Sometimes we all need reminders that setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary for our children's well-being and our own peace of mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to your peace, and you definitely don't owe anyone access to your child's emotional well-being. Family is about who shows up, not who shares your DNA.